right? Basically, I think that's a
Eddie Topper is, and I've already,
one serving a perfect pint, right?
so happy to work with you on that, and you can see some of my thoughts.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Pubinno's Perfect Beer Talks webinar. I'm Enki, the Senior Marketing Specialist at Pubinno, and I'll be your host today. Today's special guest is somebody who has over 15 years of experience in the beverage and beer industry, but not only that, he's also advanced Cicerone and has also founded 3 companies. So Chris McClellan, welcome to Perfect Beer Talks webinar. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So my first question for you is, can you share with our viewers a bit about your journey in the beverage industry, how you became an advanced Cicerone, and also how you founded 3 companies?
Yeah. The companies are on their way. They're pretty small at the moment, so it sounds nice, but they're not very much at the moment. So I appreciate you saying that regardless. So I love beer. I've loved beer my entire life. I'm very happy to be working in this industry for over 15 years now, and it's that love of beer. I have a beer 3 or 4 days a week, and I still love it. It's still one of my favorite things to do is just really enjoy it. So I grew up in Vermont here in the US, which is famous for its beer scene. And so I was kind of exposed to great beer. I would say, given how old I am, in my late 30s, I was exposed to great beer a little earlier than most people, at least more consistently. And so that definitely contributed part of it. But my first job out of business school in Vermont was working for Magic Hat Brewing Company, which is a really famous brewery here in the US. And I worked with them for sales and marketing for them, like I said, about 15 years ago. And then that just kind of, the bug bit me, and I've worked in commercial roles since then, kind of doing both a lot of technology work and a lot of like sales and commercial marketing work as well. And so I kind of have this joint skill set. If we fast forward a little bit, I've lived in New York a little over 10 years now, and I worked for Guinness for the first 6 and change that I lived in New York. I headed a national education and training program here in the US for Guinness, which included a lot of focus on great draft beer and great Guinness in general. And so that kind of renewed my focus on just the quality discussion around beer, and specifically the lack of knowledge and understanding and accountability and resources that exists here in the US for great draft beer. So that inspired me to start the Draft Shop, which I've recently gotten off the ground. And that's going to be a full platform that provides not only tools and resources for the beer industry. So if you're a brewery, distributor, supplier, anyone who, bartender, bar owner, anyone who needs more resources to be able to troubleshoot their draft system, understand what they're getting themselves into, and fix their own problems, I'm going to be building that. We'll have a full directory of draft line cleaning services and other draft services that you can access through the site, and that does not exist right now. And then we're also, my hope is to build the first kind of consumer-facing draft quality brand that customers actually recognize, right? So that we have some awareness of what quality standards are, and so you kind of see that, that Draft Shop sticker on the door, and that they're serving great beer, and great draft beer means great sales and better sales and better experience for everybody, right? And that means more money too. So
right?
exactly.
So that's what matters at the end of the day, I think, because you can make as much money as you possibly dream of, but that smile on the customer's face when they drink a great pint, I think, is priceless. And talking about Draft Shop, I was actually planning on asking you a question about Draft Shop as well, because I saw on the website you had the Draft Shop for Directory, Tech, and Academy. So what are you trying to, like you mentioned a bit that what you're trying to do is basically tell people what the standard for good quality draft beer is. So with Draft Academy, what is it that you're trying to do there? So basically educate the customers?
Yeah, exactly. The Draft Academy is an intensive 1-day class that I created. It's a very robust curriculum. It's about a 7-hour class. Let's say you walk in with almost no knowledge of draft systems, aside from you've seen draft beer being poured, right? That's about it. By the time you leave that day, you should be, out of 10, you should be around a 7 or 8, right, in terms of your draft knowledge and understanding. And so for anyone who cares about serving great beer, for anyone who wants to know more, it's a class that I run here in New York. I also do, depending on the type of clients that are interested, we do travel and take that class on the road too, around the country. We do this for big distributors. We do this for folks anywhere, right, that are looking for just the knowledge they need to actually understand draft systems and balance and quality and the selling proposition, the profit story, everything that you need to know, the hardware, the tools, everything, start to finish. So that's the Draft Academy. The directory is just going to be a resource that will actually allow you to search locally, right, for the draft resources that you need to be able to serve and pour great beer. So that includes draft line cleaning services, dispense and installation services, everything like that, right? Right now, it's kind of word of mouth. It's like, hey, do you know a guy? It's like, yeah, I know somebody, and that's kind of how it goes. There's no resource where you can go actually search online. And so that's what that is. And then Draft Tech is going to be a digital tool as part of the Draft Shop's offering that you can actually access via a new app that we're building. And you'll be able to use that as a comprehensive troubleshooting guide for your system. So start to finish, it'll walk you through step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way to the end, and basically help you hone in exactly what the draft issue is and how to solve it. Right. And it should save you a lot of service calls. It should save you a lot of hassle and grief. And it just gives everybody a little bit more backing in terms of how to solve their problem, serve great beer.
It actually it's very exciting because like even for Pubinno, like we've been around since 2016, and we've noticed that one of the biggest problems that people have is not that they don't want to drink the good draft beer, but they don't know that what they're drinking right now is not always good. So they don't know what makes a quality draft beer, what makes a good beer. And like we also notice that for us to be able to tell people this is the smart tap and this is how good we are, we first had to educate them on the problems that they had, and then tell them, for example, we could the quality of your draft beer is actually not that good because of this and that reason, and we can show you the data. So I feel like data is what was missing the most. And now that we're trying, companies like yours and ours that are trying to give the beverage industry and the beer industry, especially the draft one, the data, making it possible for people to make decisions based on actual knowledge, is something that I think will revolutionize the draft beer industry on its own. So it's very exciting what you're doing with Draft Shops. So actually, the other question I had for you is a series of different questions, which are more about your favorite beer or your favorite bar. And like my question for you is, since you've advanced Cicerone, you've been in New York for over 10 years, you've been doing this job for over 15 years. What makes a great draft beer what differentiates a great draft beer from a good one?
That's a great question. That for me, I'm not your typical consumer, right? So I'm obviously not going to walk into a bar. I don't, if I'm not there in a professional capacity, right, I'm not going to criticize too much. I'm going to kind of lower my, just be there to have fun. And so the question of what makes a great draft beer, it's a combination of all the technical specs that you've got dialed in that really do make the beer taste better, right? Genuinely better. And so this is great beer. So if we use my previous employer from 4 or 5 years ago, Guinness, I mean, that's the perfect example of that iconic pint of Guinness that really exemplifies what great draft beer is. And people look for a good, I'm making air quotes, right? A good pint of Guinness, right? Oh, that place has a great pint of Guinness, right? And it's all the same stuff. The kegs are the same, right? So everyone can serve the same quality level of Guinness. It's not impossible. It's just that most people don't. And it's a result of lack of focus and lack of understanding. It's the ignorance that you pointed to earlier. And so it's not really somebody's fault. So back to your question, a great draft beer is a combination of a technically great experience, right? So clean lines, clean glassware, correct gas, correct temperature, all the things that make the beer just land right where it needs to. But then the other 50% is the environment. I enjoy sitting in places that if I'm there to drink some beer and talk, I don't need a TV. I don't need a lot. I just need a great pint of beer, and I need my friends near me, or a great friendly bartender, or just some cool locals if I'm there by myself. And I want to talk, and I want to hang, and I want to be part of the community. And so my favorite places to drink beer, I love breweries, and I've worked at breweries. We've started breweries. It's so much fun. But my favorite places to drink beer are still great pubs, and I miss that. They don't exist as they're not as ubiquitous as they used to be in this country. And the idea of a public house, of that community gathering place, defined by the folks in your community coming together, I want that to happen more often, and that's where I love to drink great draft beer. So it's a combination of all those things.
Yeah, what you said is actually very true. Like even at Pubinno, what we're trying to do with building the internet of beer is basically give people the same standardized pint, the same flavored perfect pint, no matter the time or location. Because, you know, as you said, data is what makes it possible. And also the quality when it comes to the hygiene. The hygiene is very important, right? But not a lot of bars really care about it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of, you know, lack of interest in that part. Whenever we go and we introduce a smart thing to different bars, for example, they're like, oh, I clean my tap, you know, like once every 2 to 3 months, and we're like, no, this is why your sales are so low and why your pint is so, you know, it's not as delicious as it could be. And we're trying to like educate people in that part as well by telling them that, you know, you have to clean your jars beer lines. Your hygiene is very important when serving a perfect pint, right? Am I wrong? As an advanced Cicerone, you can also let
No,
me know.
that's exactly right. And the problem that you run into is the one you originally stated, which is it's not even that, it's a lack of understanding. It's ignorance, right? And ignorance is the problem we fight with everything. You know, you can go to the biggest issues on planet Earth, and it's just a lack of awareness and understanding of what the actual problem is. And so this ignorance is pervasive, and it's so pervasive at both the bar owner and decision-making level, you know, at pubs and bars and breweries around the world, but it's also complete, you know, customers are ignorant to it. But the thing I always say when I teach, you know, when we teach the Draft Academy and we talk about what is the customer experience, the only thing that matters is the pint in the consumer's hand. That's the only thing that matters. Nothing else is relevant. It's your only standard. That's the bar, right? And so when you are serving products that are not at that spec, it's not that you're serving them to advanced cicerones like me, right? I'm not going to sit there and pick it apart all day, but everybody knows when they're having a bad experience, right? Or the funny example I usually make is, you know, there's no such thing as a certified chicken parmesan expert on planet Earth, right? But if I serve you a bad plate of chicken parmesan, for some reason, I think you're going to know it, right? And so it's the same thing with beer, right? Nobody's an expert. They don't know why it doesn't taste good. They just know they're not having a good experience. And that is the death knell for great beer.
True. And I think when it comes to lack of knowledge, this is what you're doing different with the draught shop. I think you're making people, you know, giving people the access to have the knowledge and to learn about what makes a good draft beer as well. And maybe we can do something with your academy. Maybe we can do like a pop-up class all together with Pubinno and Draught Shop as well. I think it would be great. So my other question for you would be a bit of a cheesy one, but I always like to ask it to the guests of Perfect Beer Talk webinar. So if you could have a pint with anyone in this world, so dead or alive or historical figure, who would it be and why?
You know, I haven't even thought about this. There are so many people. I want to have a pint of beer with people who I find to be like completely confusing as a public persona, but if you sit down and talk to them, they're probably good folks, right? So who could that be? Like politicians who are, you know, trying their best to lead their people in the right direction, but you just only get what the news tells you, you know, that kind of thing, versus like who they are as people. And so I don't know if I have a good answer to this. Like there's great American historical figures that I'd love to sit down with, and you know, my like, you know, Obama and all those guys would be fantastic. And there's a few folks in like the sports world that I'd like to talk to a little bit, but I don't know. I really like talking to anybody, you know. I do. I enjoy the number of you know, serendipitous conversations that I've had with people in my career simply because I've struck up a conversation and then it turns out they do something unbelievably cool, and then I get a chance to participate or hear more about it. I think that's the best part. And I've had so many of those conversations, innumerable at this point, and that's my favorite thing. So I think everybody's interesting. So I'd have to think about that some more, but probably, yeah, some like more esoteric politicians. That'd be fun.
That's actually a very interesting answer, because I do ask this to a few people around me. It's not just about, you know, guests on Perfect Beer Talks webinars, but also friends and people who work at Pubinno. We always ask these questions. We always ask, what is your favorite beer? And what if you could drink a pint with anyone in this world, who would it be? And personally, I said Michelle Obama once. So the Obamas is actually, I think they're a couple of interest to anyone. So that's so there are people who I think would spark great conversations with a great pint of beer. But your answer is actually very nice. Like anyone who has a great story to tell, right?
We're all just people. I don't care who you are. If you're the president of a nation or you're just you and me, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a cool story, and we've all done some tremendously cool things. And so it's fun. It's fun to hear those stories.
That's a great answer. So my other question for you is, in line with Pubinno's New York expansion, which you know about, of course, we have also been creating a lot of content on the go-to bars in New York to drink draft beer. So according to you, as somebody who's lived in New York for 10 years, and I'm sure has been to so many bars all around New York, what is your favorite go-to bar? Like, what is the one that you would recommend to our listeners or to our viewers right now?
Oh man. Okay. So it's going to be pubs, right? If it's a bar, if it's a brewery, there's plenty of options too. But if
it's up to you.
No, absolutely. So locally, I've got a couple of great breweries I'd recommend. We've got right around the corner here in my neck of the woods in Brooklyn, we've got Strong Rope, which makes great local beer, and they focus on 100% New York State ingredients, so they're sourcing locally. Wild East makes fantastic lagers here in Gowanus as well. So they're all really, really good. And I could go on. I mean, there's upwards of 40 breweries in the 5 boroughs now, and most of them are making fantastic beer. The brewery we started is in Manhattan, Torch and Crown. And so they're making great beer. And then, and I don't work there anymore. I'm still a fan of the beer, but, the pub, I'd have to say there's some classics that a lot of New Yorkers will point to. So in Manhattan, places like, the Dead Poet on the Upper West Side, or Swift Hibernian Lounge, which is famous for its pint of Guinness. And then there's all these little nooks and crannies, and I could go on for hours. In my neighborhood here, there's a really great craft beer bar that's been around for a dozen plus years called Bar Great Harry, which, only serves a wide variety of, very rapidly rotating beers. And so you get a huge, but they clean their lines. The beer is so good. You go there and you just know you're going to get a great experience. So I love it. So there's tons and tons and tons. I can go on for hours, but it's good to kind of poke around.
Well, thank you for mentioning those. Like, some of them are great. I also know about them, and John also raves about them a lot. So yeah. So my other question for you is also a bit tricky. Maybe you might not have an answer directly, but we can think about it. You have time. If you can share a fun little known fact about beer that might surprise our audience, what would it be?
A fun fact about beer. That would say it again for me. Sorry.
Like a fun fact about a beer that not many people know.
Fun fact about beer that not many people know. Oh man. So in ancient Egypt, which is one of the great beer making civilizations, thousands and thousands of years ago, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, right? Like the places that originally made fermented malt beverages. If you made a bad batch of beer, you were drowned in it.
Really?
And that's true, by the way.
What was the punishment?
They took their beer seriously. So they, and granted, this is probably a emperor decree from the Egyptian monarchy, or whatever, but it's true. And there's evidence of this happening, to the plebes who are making the beer, right? So it behooved them to make quality products. So, I always thought that was cool. And I always use that as like a baseline point to point out that beer has been the people's beverage long before every other alcoholic beverage on planet Earth. Way longer than wine or spirits or anything like that. Beer has been around for 12,000 years. So this was the original great beverage. I think it continues to be the great beverage, so it points to the longevity.
That's actually shocking information. I didn't know that. Well, you're right. Beer has been around for a very long time, and it's the 3rd most consumed beverage in the world after water and tea. So every time I say this, people are like, "Is it not coffee? Are you sure it's not coffee?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty sure it's beer, the 3rd most consumed beverage in the world." Is that how much people love it and drink it? So it's very important for it to be, good, and for the quality to be amazing. My other question for you is, with your extensive experience, you've most likely seen a number of beer trends coming and going. Are there any emerging trends you're particularly excited about lately?
So the beer industry has gone through a bit of a contraction over the past 18 to 24 months. We were on this exponential growth curve here in the US over the past 10 years, 15 years, really, in terms of breweries opening and very few closing, right? So we were pushing 10,000 breweries, and we've actually seen a flat line and decline over the past 12 months. A lot of breweries closing for various reasons, constraints, cost reasons, but that winnowing down is definitely been a difficult, it's been difficult to watch when we thought that it could just grow and grow. Obviously nothing grows and grows, right? There's always peaks and valleys. But I don't think there's any major trend. There's always, beer styles that come up and come into vogue, and some stick around, things like hazy IPA. My home state of Vermont has a brewery, very famous brewery that you've probably heard of, called The Alchemist, which makes a beer called Heady Topper, which Heady Topper is, and I've argued this point from a business standpoint, because I work on the business side of beer for the most part, right? So it's the most important beer that's been released in this country over the last 2 decades, right? Because it literally changed the face of craft beer by making hazy beer trendy and cool and ubiquitous. And so now that's 50% of the beer produced by craft breweries in this country is hazy IPA, right? And so that's a hugely important thing. I don't think that there's any one particular trend I'm excited about. I love that lager has come back into vogue so strongly over the past 5 years. I have been long been a balanced, low ABV beer drinker, and now that I've got two smallish kids, I exclusively go for those styles, because the big stuff just knocks me over.
Okay. So my other question for you is, as a founder and co-founder of several ventures, what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned about entrepreneurship in the beverage industry or beer industry?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Takes a incredible focus on the business side of it, right? So making great products is obviously needs to be the step number one, right? You need to say, whatever it is that I'm producing needs to work for my customers. It needs to, and you need to, I work in marketing, right? So you need to do all your market segment, you need to do your audience development. You have to understand who it is that you're selling to, and then how to reach them. And so that's all the basics. But after you think you've got a great product, and usually, when you found a little bit of product market fit, whether it's beer or technology or hardware, in Pubinno's case, whatever it is, you have to focus on the business fundamentals, and you have to make sure that you are growing at a rate that makes sense for your cash flow, that you're growing at a rate that makes sense for the market, and that you're keeping your eye on the prize, right? If you're not goal driven, if you're not watching these things, you will fail. You will fail. It happens all the time. The number of clients that I work with that for my consulting business, The Brew Enthusiast, which is my main business, that we do a lot of brand work and fundamental brand work that really fleshes out some of the fundamental questions about the business. Why are you doing this? What is the point of this, right? How can we communicate that value prop to the customer more coherently and consistently? These are questions that most people don't bother to answer, but if you don't bother to answer them, then you're going to be aiming at nothing as a company, and you will find yourself floundering. And so long story short is, the lessons I've learned, I'm still learning. The other big one I would say is that I rarely have the best idea in the room. And so I think founding companies is about having a decent idea, getting it off the ground, and then getting as many people in your circle as you can to back you up and give you the checks and balances you need to move forward. I have a big personality. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. If you ask me if I have an opinion on something, I will definitely have an opinion on it, right? But that shouldn't ever be the final word. That should be part of the solution. And so that's the other big thing that I've learned, is that you need great folks around you. You need great partners. You need to rely on them, and you need to back them up. Some people have a hard month, a hard year. If you believe in them, if you believe in each other, then you've got each other's backs, and you can get a lot done.
Well said. I feel like, even though, like you mentioned, you might have a good idea, but then if you do gather the right people around you, and you actually allow them to, give their opinions, and also for them to be creative as well, like that something good can become something much greater later on the way.
Exactly.
So that's I feel like the power of working in a team and working with other people as well. My other question for you is, what excites you the most about the future of the beverage industry? What innovations do you foresee having a significant impact in, let's say, the next 10 years, 20 years?
So, man, that's another just one of those big gnarly questions. I think that, not to blow too much smoke, but I think technology products like Pubinno do kind of change the way that we interface with our products a little bit, and I think that that's going to continue to be implemented and used at scale. So I'm excited to actually see what these products can do and where they can slot in, to the market. The other thing I think is going to happen is we're going to continue to see an improvement, I think a relatively speaking, rapid improvement in beer quality as the companies who are in the business for the right reasons. And so you get we might have hit our ceiling in terms of number of breweries, but I think quality of beer will continue to go up. I would argue that the US makes the highest quality beer in the world right now. Not everywhere, right? But there are hundreds and hundreds of breweries in this country that make world-class, best-in-class products. And I'm excited to see that continue to happen too, because I think that beer is a beverage that is about the occasion of being near other people, and so what are different ways that we can service that occasion?
So how can we make the experience of people getting together even better?
Yeah,
even though it's great.
Exactly.
That's great. So my last question for you is actually something I asked to almost everyone, and I love every answer that I'm given. What is the best advice that you've ever received in your life, and would you like to share it with all of our viewers and listeners right now? Or like what is the best advice you would like to give to everyone right now? It can be about anything, everything. It can be about being an advanced Cicerone. It can be about getting to the beverage industry, draft beer industry.
I have recently run into a spat of people who have said they were going to do something and then didn't do it. And my wife, who is, my favorite person on earth, she is incapable of not doing what she says she's going to do. She doesn't physically know how to do that. And so she's always following up. It's amazing. It's a lesson that I try to take to heart every day. And it's, I think, the number one lesson that I could, if I have anything wise to say right now, it's that, be consistent and be the person that somebody can rely on, right, to get the job done. And you will see relatively massive success, I think, in your career, because when somebody is known for getting stuff done, when they are known for doing what they said they were going to do and following up and being consistent, that means so much. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people just take it for granted. So that would be the thing I would impart, if anything, and be nice too, because there's no need to, everybody's got a different journey, and you don't know what people are dealing with. So be as nice as you can.
Yeah, be kind and work hard, right? Basically, I think that's a great advice, something that a lot of us need to hear from now and then. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Chris. It was a pleasure to ask you all of the questions, and I loved all of the answers you gave. If you have anything else you'd like to share with our viewers, please go ahead.
No, just if anyone needs to get in touch, I run the Brew Enthusiast, which is a brand consulting and digital design firm. So happy to work with you on that. And you can see some of my clients at thebrewenthusiast.com. Other than that, we started our new CRM and ERP solution. So if you're a brewery of any size, we've designed a brand new, what I think is, laser focused on the small to medium sized business market. If you need that platform for your production, for your brewery, please get in touch. It's called Resin. And that's resincrm.com. And finally, we talked about the draft shop. So we're moving in the right direction. Lots of fun projects.
And I'm very excited to see, how it's going to go on with Resin and also Draft Shop, and also you as well. Again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. This was great.